I still remember the feeling of the ice water hitting my face, metaphorically speaking, when my dad looked me dead in the eye and demanded I attend my golden sister's wedding, threatening to cut my tuition money if I refused. He really thought he had me over a barrel, completely convinced that I was still the broke, desperate college student he'd been financially manipulating for years. The sheer arrogance in his voice when he delivered that ultimatum, it was a performance worthy of an Oscar, except the only award he was going to get was the shock of his life. He had absolutely no idea that I hadn't just secretly graduated from a top university months ago, but that I did it as the top student in my class and was now quietly pulling in a six-figure salary from a job he wouldn't even be able to pronounce. The look on his face when I finally dropped the truth was priceless, but the look on my sister's face. That was the masterpiece. Was I wrong for letting them believe I was penniless and helpless just to savor the moment of their humiliation? Tell me honestly, would you have done the same thing? My story with the golden child trope isn't unique, but the scale of the favoritism in my family was truly breathtaking. My older sister, Serena, was the sun around which my parents' universe revolved. She was conventionally pretty, popular in high school, and most importantly, she chose a socially acceptable major in college, something vague and artsy, but safe in their eyes. I, on the other hand, was always the quiet, intense one who buried her head in books about things they didn't understand, majoring in applied computational mathematics with a minor in data science. To them, my field of study was code for future failure, and my intense focus on my education was seen as an antisocial defect rather than ambition. They constantly dismissed my work, treating my long hours studying advanced algorithms like a silly hobby. "Why do you waste your time with those difficult subjects, sweetie? No one needs a girl who can write code. You should focus on finding a nice doctor to marry, like Serena is doing." My mother would sigh, completely unaware of the irony that a mid-level software engineer makes more than most general practitioners now. This kind of casual cruelty was the soundtrack to my life. From the time I was a teenager, every single major financial decision my parents made was skewed in Serena's favor. They paid for her entire sorority experience, bought her a brand new car when she graduated high school, and set up a lavish apartment for her in the city. For me, they only agreed to pay for my tuition, but not housing, and certainly not any frivolous extras. And even that tuition was constantly held over my head like a medieval threat. Every argument, every minor disagreement, always ended with my dad saying, "Watch your tone, young lady. That tuition check can stop at any moment." I quickly learned that the only way to escape their control was to remove the one leverage they had, and that was their money. I didn't want their money anyway, not really, but I needed to play the game to buy myself time. So I accepted their partial tuition funding and put on a show of constant dependency. What they didn't know was that while they were busy parading Serena around as their shining star, I was working 3 different remote jobs tutoring high-level math, freelance data analysis, and developing simple commercial scripts and funneling every single penny into a secret savings account and a high-yield investment portfolio. I was also taking nearly double the course load of a typical student, pushing myself to the absolute limit. My goal was simple: finish college in 2.5 years instead of 4. I couldn't afford their emotional abuse for a day longer than necessary. The moment of my secret triumph came 8 months before this wedding debacle. I stood in a packed auditorium, not with my parents present, but with a few close, trusted friends who knew the real story. I didn't just graduate. I received the university's most prestigious undergraduate medal. The dean specifically called me out for an innovative thesis that was already being commercialized by a small tech startup. My GPA was a flawless 4.0. It was the most validating moment of my life, a pure victory earned solely by my own blood, sweat, and caffeine. After the ceremony, I didn't tell my parents. I just kept up the charade. I continued to live in the tiny, cheap apartment near campus that I paid for myself, kept my old beat-up car, and whenever my parents called, I'd sigh and say things like, "Oh, the math is so hard this semester," or "I don't know if I'll ever find a job in this field. I'm so worried." They ate it up, convinced they were the sole pillar of my support. Meanwhile, I had accepted a job as a senior data scientist for a major fintech company, completely remote, with a salary starting well into the six figures and a generous stock option package that was already growing faster than their retirement fund. I was financially free, debt-free, and most importantly, emotionally untouchable. Then came the wedding. Serena was marrying a guy who, to be honest, was a nice enough person, but he was wealthy and had a recognizable last name. That was the part my parents cared about. The wedding, naturally, was to be a massive, over-the-top event designed to impress their entire social circle. The date they picked, however, was a problem for me. It fell right in the middle of a critical project launch for my new company, a project for which I was the lead architect. I had already booked a week of travel for a necessary on-site meeting with a client. I politely and firmly told my parents I couldn't make it. The reaction was exactly what I expected. My mom accused me of being selfish, trying to ruin Serena's day, and claimed my commitment to my pretend job was ridiculous. But it was my father's follow-up call that truly set the stage for the climax. He called me while I was in the middle of a complex coding session. His voice was cold, flat, and absolute. "Your mother and I have decided that your attendance at this wedding is mandatory," he stated. "We don't care about your little study group or whatever you're doing. Family comes first. If you refuse to attend, consider your tuition for your final semester cut. You'll have to figure out how to pay for it yourself, and I know you can't." He paused, clearly waiting for me to beg or cry, but I didn't. I felt a calm, deep satisfaction wash over me. This was it. The final, flimsy thread of control they had left was about to snap. I simply said, "Okay, Dad," noted. "I'll see you at the rehearsal dinner." I hung up and immediately called my private banker. I spent the next 2 weeks meticulously planning my grand entrance, not to steal Serena's spotlight, but to dismantle the entire infrastructure of their control and the financial threat they used against me. I bought a dress not borrowed. Mind you, a stunning, deep emerald green gown that looked effortlessly elegant, but probably cost more than my dad's monthly mortgage payment. I flew first class to the city, arriving the day before the rehearsal dinner, and instead of staying in the cheap hotel I usually used, I checked into the most exclusive hotel in the area, a place only billionaires and foreign dignitaries stayed. I did all of this under their radar, keeping up my persona of the struggling student right up until the last moment. My dad had instructed me to meet them at the country club early to help with last-minute errands, which was his subtle way of saying he wanted me to do manual labor while Serena got pampered. I told him I'd be there, but I had a professor's meeting first. So that's the situation I was in. My entire family was gathered. My sister was basking in the glow of being the golden child bride, and my parents were ready to use their financial leverage one last time, completely convinced they were calling all the shots, and that I was their helpless pawn. I was about to walk into that country club, not as their struggling daughter, but as a silent millionaire whose net worth dwarfed theirs, and whose secret academic success was about to blow up their entire narrative. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have kept your success a secret and just enjoyed the wedding? Or would you have used the financial threat they issued as the perfect opportunity for the ultimate public mic drop? What's your revenge plan? Let me know in the comments. The rehearsal dinner was held in the country club's most lavish private room, all crystal and gold leaf. When I walked in 20 minutes late, the room went silent. I wasn't just wearing an expensive dress. I was wearing confidence and power, two things I had never been allowed to own in their presence. My mother frowned immediately. "Why are you late, and where did you get that dress? You know we told you to wear something appropriate, not something flashy." Serena, in her white pre-wedding gown, just looked annoyed that I had momentarily drawn attention away from her. My father, however, gave me a sharp, cold look that was a clear prelude to a scolding. After a few minutes of strained small talk, he pulled me aside, his face a mask of patronizing disappointment. "You really tried to skip your sister's wedding, didn't you, my name?" he whispered, his eyes scanning the room to ensure no one heard him berating his failure of a daughter. "I'm very disappointed in your priorities. That is why your mother and I have decided to give you a lesson in responsibility." He puffed up his chest, preparing for his power move. "Since you feel your work is so important, we have decided to cut your tuition money effective immediately. You will not be getting the check we promised for your final semester. Maybe this will teach you to respect your family." He then added, with a dismissive wave of his hand, "Now, go say hello to your Aunt Margaret and try not to embarrass us." He walked away, satisfied that he had just delivered a crushing blow. I didn't move. I let him walk away, and then I simply cleared my throat, loud enough to stop the low hum of conversation. When everyone turned to look at me, including my father, who instantly registered the panic in my mother's eyes, I spoke. My voice was calm, clear, and projected beautifully across the room. "Thank you, Dad," I said, a small, genuine smile on my face. "I really appreciate the timing of that lesson, but I'm afraid it's a lesson you can no longer teach." My father's brow furrowed. "What is that supposed to mean?" he snapped. This was the moment. I looked right at him, my eyes steady. "It means you can keep the tuition money, Dad. You see, I secretly graduated from the university 8 months ago." A collective gasp went around the room. Serena's glass almost slipped from her hand. My mother clutched her pearl necklace. My father, for the first time in his life, looked genuinely confused and powerless. What are you talking about? Your final semester is next month," he stammered. I shook my head gently. "No, Dad, my final semester was last December. I completed a full 4-year degree in 2.5 years by overloading my schedule." I paused, letting the silence build again. Then I delivered the first punch. "And to address your concerns about my pretend job, I think it's only fair to tell you that I didn't just graduate. I graduated summa cum laude, top of my class, and I'm currently employed as a senior data scientist for FinTech Global, a remote position, which is why I was able to leave for my client meeting next week." My mother's mouth was hanging open. My father, his face draining of color, stammered, "A senior? A scientist? What does that even pay? A research grant?" He was clutching at straws, still trying to minimize my success. I didn't hesitate. I delivered the finishing blow right there, in front of all his important friends and business associates. "It pays 6 figures, Dad. Substantially more than 6 figures, actually. Enough that I've already paid off my entire student loan balance, the one you thought you were paying for, and have already bought myself a condo in the city, which I'll be closing on next week. I've been completely financially independent and debt-free for 6 months now, so the threat of cutting my tuition, it stopped mattering a long time ago. Thank you for the ride, but I've been driving myself for a while now." The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush diamonds. My father's face was a masterpiece of disbelief, anger, and utter shame. Serena, seeing the attention completely hijacked, and the focus shifted from her impending wedding to my secret success, finally snapped. "You did this on purpose. You deliberately lied to us to make us look bad." She shrieked, tears springing to her eyes, not because she was hurt, but because she felt overshadowed. I just looked at her calmly. "I didn't lie, Serena. I just stopped giving you information you would only use to hurt me. And I'm not doing this to make you look bad. I'm doing this to set a permanent boundary. You and Mom and Dad no longer have any leverage over me. You can't threaten me, you can't manipulate me, and you can't control me. The next few minutes were chaos. My father tried to regain control, pulling me aside again, his whispers now desperate. You can't do this here. This is your sister's day. You're making a scene. Tell everyone you were just joking. But I refused. You were the one who made the threat, Dad. I was just giving you the truth in response. He was livid, completely emasculated in front of his peers. The rest of the evening was a disaster for them. My parents and Serena spent the rest of the night trying to salvage their image, muttering about my ungratefulness and lack of family values. But their guests weren't listening. They were all looking at me, the quiet, underestimated daughter, now an accomplished, wealthy woman who had just publicly outsmarted her entire family. Many of them, surprisingly, came over and quietly congratulated me, whispering their admiration for my quiet strength. I stayed for the wedding, which was excruciating for my parents. I walked in, looking stunning and completely unbothered, while my parents were a picture of strained anxiety. My father tried to approach me later, after the ceremony, but I simply held up my hand. My attendance at the wedding was not a concession, Dad. It was me honoring a commitment to my sister, despite your attempts to use it as a tool for control. Our relationship going forward will be on my terms or not at all. You can keep the tuition money, use it to pay for therapy. You need it more than I do. I left that night, flying back first class to my new city and my new life, completely severing the financial and emotional chains that had held me for so long. The aftermath was exactly what I had hoped for. My parents didn't try to contact me for weeks. When they finally did, their tone was different, less commanding, more tentative. They realized they had lost their power completely. Serena still harbors resentment, but even she has to treat me with a grudging respect, knowing I could buy and sell her entire wedding party. I don't see my family much anymore, and when I do, it's always in a neutral setting, for a short time, and I am the one who sets the terms. I finally have the peace and respect I earned the hard way, not with their handouts, but with my own relentless work and quiet, strategic planning. The moral of the story is simple. Never underestimate the quiet one, and never give a manipulator the leverage to control your future. They thought they had me with a $10,000 tuition threat, but I walked away with my dignity, my education, and a six-figure income they couldn't touch. If you loved this story of quiet revenge and ultimate independence, please like this video if you were on my side the moment my dad made that threat. Subscribe for more stories like this. I've got a whole library of them waiting for you. And finally, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Did my parents get what they deserved? What would you do with the tuition money? Let me know. I'll see you all in the next story.